Thank you. Thank you all. It's lovely to be back here in HGO. I am Delegate Michelle Guyton from District 42B in Baltimore County, and I have a gift for you of something not controversial, that everyone agrees on, and that has no fiscal note. Ooh. So there you go. And we'll try to make it really quick as well. So I am thanking you for your careful consideration of House Bill 870 that simply requires a Memorandum of Understanding between the Division of Rehabilitation Services in the Maryland State Department of Education and the Developmental Disabilities Administration within the Department of Health. So this bill was a recommendation of a work group that we passed last year as a member of the General Assembly, or as a General Assembly, that actually requested that MSE do a deep dive with stakeholders to try to see how we could improve the services of the Division of Rehabilitation Services. So this recommendation that there be this MOU to share data between these two departments is supported, and you have letters from both the Maryland State Department of Education and from the Maryland Department of Health. They say strongly supported, and they feel, as do I, that this change will allow these departments to simplify the process of transitioning to adult services for our students who have disabilities, and it will also expedite the decision-making on eligibility for those clients who are served by both departments. So that basically helps end the wait, right? Which is something that this group has been working on, this committee has been working on. So I do know we have one favorable with amendment, and I have discussed that with her. She's going to ask that you put forward an amendment to extend this work group for one more year so that they can complete their work. If you decide as a body to do that, I would certainly accept that as a favorable amendment. And otherwise, I would ask for a favorable report on House Bill 870. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delegate.
Second.
Wait a minute. We have the chair would be annoyed with me if we didn't follow process here. I now work for her. No. Ms. London.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Rachel London, the Executive Director of the Maryland Developmental Disabilities Council. I'm also the chair of the Developmental Disabilities Coalition, and that's whose testimony you have in front of you. Of course, we support. I will be very brief. I just want to acknowledge a couple of things. There's currently an MOU between the DDA and DOORS. It's more about policy and kind of philosophy and a little bit of joint training, but really doesn't address shared data. So this is necessary, one, and it's particularly important, as Delegate Guyton mentioned, for those students transitioning. About 5 years ago, 6 years ago, DOORS started providing pre-employment transition services within schools. And many of those students who receive those services transition into adult services through the DDA. And DOORS is also the resource once a person is ready to work, an adult, is ready to work and is already maybe receiving services from the DDA or by a provider funded by the DDA. The DOORS money can really supplement that. So bottom line is, this is critical so that we can share data, increase and improve how effective and efficient it is. And the last thing I'll say is I am on that DOORS commission. I've been working closely with all of the members of that commission over the last year. And we've really focused and talked a lot about improved communications and relationships between state agencies, so many of who do serve the same group of people with disabilities. This recommendation explicitly written like that. So just to add that as another layer of support, not that it was needed, but thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We're going to take the virtual witnesses before I open it to questions. And actually one of the witnesses is not able to be here today, but we do have Megan Jones and Lisa Widerlight. And so Megan, if you want to go first.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I am Megan Jones. I am a senior attorney with Disability Rights Maryland. We are the state's protection and advocacy agency. DRM is part of a national network of nonprofits, and we are responsible for representing Both students with disabilities who are transition age and eligible for services from the Division of Rehabilitation Services, as well as beneficiaries of Social Security payments who face barriers to employment, including barriers with the Division of Rehabilitation Services. We appreciate the legislature's commitment to improving the services from DOORS, and we appreciate the decision to form the commission to study the Division of Rehabilitation Services last session. As Ms. London mentioned, the commission did recommend this Memorandum of Understanding to better serve consumers, and we support House Bill 870 with amendment. While the commission meetings have provided an opportunity for transparency about DOORS operations and programmatic needs, there's more work to be done. In many areas, it was unclear whether funding alone could improve current and historic shortcomings and whether recommended MOUs and partnerships would go far enough on behalf of consumers. It's DRM's recommendation as the P&A that consideration be given to ongoing review and study of DOORS operations. Preliminary study and discourse has happened, but many commission members felt there was not enough time to thoroughly study and discuss the questions posed to the commission. Additionally, while the commission was initially made up of members with knowledge about the needs of transitioning youth, a few commission members pointed out that the commission was very heavy on transitioning youth and less representative of other consumers. So we'd like to continue the discussion with additional stakeholders present. For these reasons, we support House Bill 870 with amendment.
Thank you. Lisa?
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Wiederlight. It's an honor to be here to support this bill. I also serve on the Maryland Autism Stakeholder Group for autism-related needs. But more importantly, today I'm speaking as the mother of a 22-year-old young man with autism in Montgomery County. Joshua has a host of co-occurring medical and neurological conditions, much like many others diagnosed with autism. Specifically, peer-reviewed research has shown that people with autism have on average 4 co-occurring conditions. Most common are gastrointestinal disease, epilepsy, wandering behaviors, depression, and anxiety, and most of these conditions require special accommodations. Why am I telling you this? Like many of us, but more so, many people with disabilities require sameness, structure, and consistency to thrive. This bill will help to facilitate the seamless transfer of information between DOORS and the DDA with little to no disruption of services. When members of our community have a break in services, they can get very upset, which may include self-injurious behavior, aggression toward others, and increases in mood disorders. Further, it complicates caregivers' work schedules and can endanger their employment. This is as real as it gets. Having the ability to exchange information, including health data, that would facilitate the provisions of accommodations needed to maintain consistency of services and employment seems like the most humane and effective thing to do to me. Finally, I know from unfortunate situations my son encountered while attempting to get job training services at DOORS that there is still a lot of work for the DOORS group to do. I hope you will support its continuation. We must support the employment and independence of all Marylanders. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for this panel, for the sponsors panel? I saw Delegate White.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and Delegate Guyton. Thank you so much for this bill and for the panelists. Could you share, because you talked about ending the wait, right? So could you share what is the average amount of time that one would wait or a family would wait to receive these services and programs from DOORS?
Sure. Thank you for that question. And actually, this is something that I spoke about quite a bit last year before you were here, Delegate, so it's nice. When we put this work group into place, currently it's somewhere between 6 and 8 years waiting time. That's to get services through DOORS. And then, this is more to this bill specifically, and then there's more waiting to get from DOORS services to DDA and back again if you need to go between them, right? Because you have to, only one answer. I should let you take that one. But yeah, there's significant waits here. And as Ms. Wiederlight pointed out too, those waits can be very devastating to this population of people, particularly when it means that they can't go to work during that time, that they can't get services during that time. And then just the stress of not having that consistency can be really devastating to them. So there are lots of reasons why we don't want to have a hole in between our service providers.
Yes.
Quickly. So you would say that, again, with the data sharing would create not just a greater delivery of services and accountability, but what would you say, how could it how could this essentially shorten that time period? How do you see this?
Do you want to take it this time?
You know,
No,
how do
Nobody
you
wants it.
see this shortening the process based on the wait time that you just?
Sure, because a lot of, my understanding is a lot of times folks have to basically go through a reapplication process, and this would get rid of that, right? And that can also be extended depending on the situation. So, you know, definitely, again, this wasn't my brilliant idea. I wish it had been. I wish I had all this information, but this was the work group and the different divisions coming together saying, how can we improve our services? And this was one of 3 bills I'm bringing this year to address it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Delegate Bandari.
Thank you, Delegate Guyton, for this wonderful bill. I see that the MOU will follow a collaboration model, which is already present in some other state. Could you let the committee know that what specific challenges have come in the past that have hindered efficient data sharing between DORS and DDA? Or I think Lisha could answer that question.
I'm happy to. Sure, I'm happy to. And we have had a lot of these discussions within the DOORS Commission, right? A couple of the big issues are, there are huge application processes for both services, for all the services, right? And it takes a long time to complete those for a person, for a family. And then it takes a long time to review those, right? And they include all of the things included in this bill. So the documentation, the medical documentation, the psychological records. So if we share that information between 2 agencies who are supporting mutual people, right, for the same people, providing similar services that supplement each other, they don't supplant each other, to be clear, it really does streamline the process before, right? So that the eligibility piece, the eligibility determination piece, but also then gets people into services faster, right? There is less back and forth between what information is needed, how are they, who's going to provide it to whom, and so it really does expedite. And look, I think we all know better communication, better partnership always leads to more and better and easier things, and that's critical for people who are relying on these services and supports for their daily lives.
Okay. Quickly, yes.
Yeah, does that include the data sharing, the medical and psychological records, both?
If they're serving mutual people, right? So so that could be someone who's in school receiving those transition services from DOORS, who's then applying to the DDA. That information, yes, would be shared. Mm-hmm.
Okay, seeing no further questions, that concludes the hearing on House Bill 870.